Hello, Guardians. Today is Friday, January 20th, 2023. We're 38 days away from Lightfall. My name's Danfinity, and welcome to Destiny Digest. This week, the hits keep on coming, so no housekeeping this week outside of a plug for last week's guest, Ascendant Nomad. If you're hearing this, chances are you can watch his interview with Chris Proctor, Senior Design Lead over at Bungie, on Nomad's YouTube channel. Go give it a look. This episode, we have a bunch of news to get through and a conversation with Haaaterade about GMs, build crafting, and so much more, so please stick around. Heading into the news, the train started rolling out of the station on Tuesday when we received a vibe check of a location trailer for Neomuna, the new planet coming to Destiny 2 with Lightfall. There are lots of colorful locations, lots of buckets on heads, and I'm getting a Red War campaign feeling out of all of it. What with Callus's Cabal infiltrating a city and whatnot. It's a really cool trailer, really cool soundtrack. I can't wait for the soundtrack to come out. Definitely worth a watch. Any other week, that might have been the meat and potatoes of this section of the show, but Wednesday, Bungie followed up with 2 articles covering changes to Destiny 2. If your retrofit escapade isn't popping as many volatile rounds with your Void build, that's because with hotfix 6.3.0.4, Bungie fixed an issue where volatile detonation triggered at a higher than expected cadence. The hotfix also included the reduction in power level requirement for Grandmaster Nightfalls from plus 25 to plus 15 over the power cap, allowing players easier access into these activities. Duality not only saw its red border drop rate increased with the patch, but also a fix to the rewards not popping up during weeks where it is a featured dungeon. Some other quick hits include Supplicant Spawn and Spire of the Watcher have improved audio. Insight drop rates increased for all raids just in time for DSC Rotator next week. And a reduction to the focusing costs for items coming from Trials, Banner, Crucible, and Gambit vendors. Wednesday also ushered with it a look at the future of build crafting coming with Lightfall. To quote their TLDR, consolidation is a major theme of the changes you'll be seeing today. In the conversation with Haaaterade in just a moment, we cover some of the changes as it released just before we started recording, but I'll give a few details here. Guardians will be able to craft 10 loadouts per character. That won't be out the gate. The amount you are able to have will be tied to your Guardian rank. So as you rank up your Guardian, you get more loadouts, you get the picture. I still think people that are invested in DIM will continue using DIM, but 10 loadouts per character is going to be great when the API is down. Warmind cells are biting the dust. Match game is being removed from in-game activities as a modifier, with enemy shields being adjusted to act more akin to how they do in Gambit. Champion puzzles will no longer be solely tied to the artifact mods, but also to your Guardian's abilities and other statuses like blinding. Not only that, but artifact mods are kind of going away. Like, they'll be more passive. You'll unlock them on the artifact. You won't need to slot them into any of your gear. They just are there, always giving you power. For more information, please check the links in the show notes. Moving into the twab of it all, Hippie returns. Welcome back, Hippie. After a brief recap of everything just stated, the hits keep coming, with a clarification on Dredgen title gilding requiring 50 match completions over 30 wins. This next one is a huge one for me, as I use farming mode in DIM. Blue Ingrams will stop dropping after you hit the soft cap. Instead, you'll see a burst of glimmer equal to what you would have earned with the blues. They will also be adjusting gunsmith rep gains by 25% to compensate. Rumble will return as a permanent node on the Crucible screen next patch. Year 3 Catalysts will be able to take advantage of Season Pass boosts, and any missing exotic glaive patterns from Wellspring will be able to be purchased from the evidence board as long as you've earned one of them in the past. Future World First Champions, mark your calendars for Friday, March 10th, 2023 at 9 a.m. PST. This will be the day that the new raid drops, and shout out to Scarrow. Good luck on your dissertation defense that day. Pulling for you, buddy. Also in the TWAB, the Rituals team shared some results of the matchmaking in the Crucible, doubling down on their Fireteam-based matchmaking settings and expressing a wish to remove freelance modes in the future. Once FBMM is ironed out, they will be moving in with dynamic skill matchmaking geared toward matchmaking improvements in low population skill brackets and population times. Airborne effectiveness also will be getting a touch in an upcoming patch. Primary weapons with no investment into AE will be as accurate as a primary weapon with the Icarus Grip mod equipped before the introduction of AE. Submachine guns will be getting some tweaks. Pulses will be receiving a nerf to top end range and increasing recoil. I know there's some information about Saitan's ramparts in there as well, but for a full list of changes, please check the links in the show notes. Finally, Bungie has added some new accounts to share information, context, clarification, and feedback solicitation all in one tidy place. Destiny 2 Team, that is all one thing, Destiny 2 Team on Twitter, Reddit, and Bungie have gone live and will be the space for all team communication going forward, meaning we no longer have to pore endlessly over a bunch of employees' feeds looking for morsels of information, and in return, hopefully, they receive less harassment by anime profile pictures with 4 followers. Win-win. Now, on to our conversation with Haaaterade. Welcome to the show, buddy. How are you today?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing great.
Yeah?
I'm doing great. Wednesday, we got some new Destiny to talk about.
Yeah.
New Destiny information to talk about. Life is good, man. How about yourself?
Other than what we talked about before the show, I'm doing fairly well. Can't complain too much lately. But yeah, man. So I guess, yeah, let's get right into it. It seems we have quite a bit to cover today. For those of you listening at home, the Buildcraft article dropped literally like an hour before we hopped in to this call. So we'll be maybe a little bit later doing a little bit of a breakdown of like, what the hell does this mean? Because there seems to be like a sort of tectonic shift in how we're going to be engaging enemies next season. Before we get into all that, Hater, why don't you tell the fine people at home where they can find you on the internet, just in case they don't make it to the end? Maybe tell them a little bit about yourself, what you do on in Destiny.
So just a little bit of backgrounds. I've played Destiny since the D1 beta. More often than not in either smaller or larger communities. Started creating content around Destiny 3-4 years ago, just kind of casually streaming off and on Twitch over at twitch.tv/Haaaterade. And then recently, within the last 9 months or so, have started putting out information on YouTube, trying to be a more reliable source of like both information and just kind of not necessarily tips and tricks, but kind of like I look at it as arming people with the information that they may not know to better enjoy the game. A lot of emphasis is put on like, running the meta, like this is what's best, like use this, go get this now. It's like, yeah, that's great. But there are so many different and strong things in the game, and there always have been, that can work just as well. Maybe or maybe not, maybe like a small scale down from being like peak meta, but still work really well. And you can still enjoy the game. So just kind of being an advocate for playing the way you want to play, so long as you're enjoying the experience. Because at the end of the day, like Destiny is a video game, we're playing it to have fun. We're playing it to play with friends. So just trying to emphasize that. But so same thing, youtube.com/Haaaterade. And Twitter, well, somebody took my username that doesn't post on Twitter. So I had to throw some underscores in there. _Haaaterade _
worst.
And it's like, worst. I remember when I made it, I was like, oh, let me see if this is available. Nope. This dude that hasn't posted has had the account since like Twitter's inception.
It's the bane of every content creator's existence, dude. It's not just you.
Yeah. And then lastly, of course, TikTok. I'm older, so like I use TikTok. I don't post there as frequently, maybe like once a week or so, just because it's kind of like fun like content dumps. So yeah. Heck
yeah. Well, what got you started in Destiny?
I mean, Bungie was already kind of a household name with the Halo series. I grew up playing, all the Halo games. I remember old school LAN parties in my buddy's garage, playing playing Halo, and so I already really enjoyed Bungie themselves as a company and the product that they delivered. So when Destiny came out, or when word came out that Destiny was on the way out, I was like, okay, obviously Bungie's making it, so I'll give it a shot. I was always big on playing first person shooters, and then some like JRPGs. Dabbled a little bit in MMOs, but never really too deep because I was always like kind of taken aback at the grind.
Mm-hmm.
And of course here we are now.
Yeah.
But and I just immediately loved it. I mean, as you've probably heard of, a bunch of Destiny players say, there's something about the gunplay that just feels smooth.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to run and gun, use your abilities, and combine the two together it's just been nothing short of fantastic. It's just fun to just kind of load up and just shoot some aliens in the face, So yeah, just diving in because Bungie was already a household name, and then started getting involved in some smaller clans, some smaller communities, and then just really started enjoying the community aspect of it, and building and maintaining relationships and being able to tackle those, the quote unquote end game experiences, the raids, the nightfalls, like old school D1 nightfalls, which were brutal. And then of course now we have GMs, master raids, dungeons, master dungeons, like all this stuff where it really I think in order to really enjoy it at its best, you have to do it in a group.
Mm-hmm.
So which then kind of further bolsters that community mindset and really kind of building and maintaining relationships with people. So
absolutely. Like, do you find yourself not only in Destiny, but also in other games seeking out harder difficulty?
I do. It's funny. Yeah. Because of Destiny. Yeah. And it wasn't always like that. I kind of just went with the flow of things in Destiny. And I was like, okay, like we're going to do some raids, like this, that, or the other. I didn't really know anything about like low mans or like doing like the pinnacle peak hardest kind of stuff or really challenging myself until really about the last 2 or 3 years in Destiny when like GMs came out. I was kind of like, I was an okay raider. Like I would raid with some friends, Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern was always our like scheduled raid time.
Mm-hmm.
So I would raid once a week, but I was never really like that. I didn't really care about like kind of pushing or challenging myself to do harder stuff or to do more challenging challenges. If that makes sense. Until about, a year or two ago. And then, as I started to meet more people that had that mindset of like, okay, we're proficient at this. How do we then kind of spread our proficiency to others and say, hey, like, I'm not to toot my own horn, but like, I know what I'm doing here. I'm kind of good at this. If you're not comfortable with it, let me take you under my wing and let's get you comfortable, like doing whatever you want to do, whether it's a raid, whether it's a GM, whether it's you guys know Bergen Star, buddy of mine, like we've started doing low man helps where we'll take people into trio raids and be like, hey, if you want to experience this, like it's challenging, but it's fun. And it kind of shows you like really it kind of pushes you to your limit to see like how hard a content can I push myself through, or what can I do to make up where, others may not be able to perform. So it's been a lot of fun. And I think that's where we're at right now with GMs. I think we're starting some GM helps tonight.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just awesome. And it's super rewarding. Like I love the fact that when somebody that hasn't previously done something either reaches out to us or, says, hey, I want to do this. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. Like, let's go, let's knock it out. And then they get it done. And just sometimes when you get that reaction where it's just like, oh my God, that was so amazing. Like, I can't believe I did that. It's like, yeah, you did. Like you got it. You nailed it. Like just, try not to doubt yourself so much. Just put a little bit of confidence in there and you got it. So
build up that confidence just a little bit. That was my buddy Chase. Last season, he hit up the Sherpa. We have a Sherpa board in the Discord server. So like, if anybody is like, hey, I would like to get this. I would like to get help with this. They can post in there and we can see what we can do. Chase had posted a little bit later in the season to do Conqueror when nobody in the server had the node anymore. And it was like 2 weeks out from like the end. So it was like, dude, had you asked like 6 weeks ago, we'd definitely be all over it for you. But unfortunately, the time being time. And last night I was like, hey, like Chase, you're going to come with me. we're going to grab somebody and we're going to try to knock out Conquer in a day for you, because he's never earned it before. And we got through 2. We got through Warden and Insight Terminus, probably the easier of the GMs this season. But he came out of it with like, oh yeah, like we knocked those out very quickly, and like you can tell that it built confidence in him. Yeah. And that's like such a sweet feeling.
It really is. It really is. I look back to Bona and I think it was when Val or Multiclass, I can't remember what the raid was, but we were doing guides, Sherpas, helps, carries, whatever you want to call it, one day, and somebody had come into his chat and was saying, hey, I'm deaf. I really want to get this done, but I can't hear. So like, I'm not going to be able to like hear you say anything, or like, it's going to be hard for me to communicate. And we're like, we got you. We got text chat. Like we're good. We got it. And
thanks, Bungie.
It was Val. Yeah. Thanks, Bungie. It was Val. So I remember we got done with the Rogue fight, and like, they were just fucking ecstatic. Sorry, am I allowed to cuss?
Oh yeah.
They were,
say whatever you want.
they were like ecstatic that they were able to go through and experience that, with relative ease. There was a little bit of hiccups, but that's part of the learning curve. I mean, we were kind of going on the fly too, to be like, okay, how are we gonna approach this encounter? How are we gonna make sure that the appropriate information is relayed from both sides? And but it was so much fun, and then just seeing their reaction afterwards was just, I mean, that's the cherry on top. Like that's why I like to think, I mean, I would hope that that's why people do any kinds of helps or Sherpas, carries, whatever, is you're just helping people. You're helping people experience stuff.
Yeah, there was what was it? Back in the day, it was service streamer. I guess it's current now. Like and that kind of got for a time there that kind of got like a dirty name, like, oh, you're just a service streamer, like that kind of thing. And there is something to it though. It's like I am in service to my community on this thing, but that also builds interesting stories for not only me to tell, but also for them to tell. And it's really building a community, finding a way of building a community around helps, which is what you've done for yourself as well.
Yeah.
Like with the fundament, like what have your experiences been in helping to run that community?
So, I guess for those that don't know, like the Fundament it's a Destiny clan that myself and J-Man, we put together. Gosh, we're going on 3 years now. Mm-hmm. Well, 2.5. But like we came together and we were like, hey, we want to put together a community of like-minded end game focused individuals. Jay is very much like Trials, PvP, like the dude's a sweat. And I was like, you bring the PvP mindset and that expertise to the mix, and then I'll bring the PvE side of the house. And we'll kind of like try and build this community that, like, yeah, sure, it has some smaller content creators in it. Yeah. And the focus is not necessarily to build as a content creator, but to build a community, overall like larger community that has that shared mindset of like helping other people. So, we started kind of small. We pulled in a couple other people, Dizzy, Starkiller, Bona, and Crazy T, and we're like kind of like the power, like the head honchos, if you will, the admins of the group. And then we just started kind of blowing up. We had a couple different charity events that we ran, both PvE and PvP. And now it's gotten to the point where I never really thought I'd be a part of a kind of a Discord that has an LFG, because and a lot of times people hear Destiny LFG and it's just like they cringe, because you think either like the big Destiny 2 LFG, which is, not to go down a rabbit hole, but like can be oftentimes littered with a little bit of toxicity, and kind of elitism, and so it may get a bad rap saying, LFG, or like, hey, people come in our community, it's like, hey, if you want to get something done, like just ping the LFG. Can't necessarily like say like somebody will absolutely get to help you. What we always recommend is like, if you want to really get something done, like post in there and say, hey, this is what I want to do. Does anybody have time to help me set this up? And then somebody will say like, yeah, sure, either I can hop on now, or like, hey, let's set something up, like what time works best for you. And it's been really cool to see that. Like just before, I don't know, it was like an hour ago, like somebody posted in there, I was like, hey, anybody want to help me with a regular dungeon boss checkpoint? I was like, I got time. Just jumped in, knocked out a quick checkpoint, said, all right, GG's, see you later.
I'm seeing that based on my internet stalking.
And it's just I don't know, it's just cool to be a part of that. So
yeah, hell yeah, dude. What are your thoughts on the season so far in Destiny 2 when it comes to difficulty and activity?
I like it. So the seasonal activity, I've taken kind of like off and on breaks this season. You know, like many others, I've gotten to the point where it's not necessarily like Destiny burnout, but I've always been a big advocate for having, you know, other outlets. If you're wanting a game and Destiny's not doing it for you, like have another game to play on the side, or two or three, whatever. But don't just sit there and play it if you're not enjoying it. And there were times where I was like, man, I don't really want to play Destiny right now. So I've kind of come and gone from the season, but from what I have seen, I really like the seasonal activity. I think it's a little long. Yeah. But overall, like the difficulty, perfect. I love that like kind of contest modifier light mindset that challenges people a little bit more instead of just, you know, past seasonal activities where it's like, okay, yeah, we got to bring champion mods, but we're just going to steamroll them anyways.
Right.
Now, you know, I feel like it offers a lot more people a challenge. And I think that's great. I think that's definitely something that Destiny and Bungie I'm hoping that they lean more into in the future. I know there's been so many gripes over the years about like the pinnacle grind or like the play loop of like, all right, let me go do my Destiny chores for the week. I got to log in and do my 3 strikes and do my 3 crucible matches.
Put on my artifact mods. So I can take out these champs and this master Nightfall. And
now I think I'm hoping that it's a continued move in the direction of like just letting people like truly play the way they want to play. If they want to play, you know, if they want to do strikes, go live in the strike playlists. And then if, you know, go do Nightfalls or raids or do whatever. If you want to play PvP, bless your heart right now. Go live in the Crucible. Go live in Trials. If that's what gets it done for you, hey, like more power to you. That's a whole nother conversation to have about PvP. But and it's funny because I've talked to some friends of mine before about like, okay, if that's what you really wanted to do, like maybe Bungie just looks at like, you know, the three playlist activities: Crucible, Vanguard, and Gambit. There's 3 pinnacles there. You get 1 pinnacle for every 3 completions of an activity. Why not just put 3 pinnacles in the core playlist activities? And if you want to do 9 strikes, you get a pinnacle every 3 strikes. Yeah. Just lets people play the way they want to play instead of forcing them into playlists, which brings other arguments about like, well, then it may affect, you know, the Crucible population or the Gambit population. And that's true. I don't pretend to have all the answers. I'm just a guy that likes to run through strikes and shoot aliens in the face.
You're a guy who doesn't like Crucible or Gambit. I'm kidding.
I dabble. Okay, so I dabble. Actually, so I skipped Iron Banner this time, but I was just because I had other stuff going on. And but like I play Iron Banner every season. I'll occasionally dive into some Crucible. Gambit, I play for the bounties or if there's something that I really want there, but more often than not, I skip it. I really miss Gambit Prime days. Yeah. Because I loved Gambit back then, like a lot of people. And I know Crucible definitely needs some love and some new maps, but damn, Gambit needs some new maps too. Yeah. we were doing, I think it was the clan bounties the other day, where it was like complete 10 Gambit matches. So you're gonna do that on 3 characters. You gotta do it. You gotta play 30 matches. Yep. It's like, that's a lot of Gambit in a week, let alone a day. I think we did 20 matches of Gambit, and by like the last 4 or 5, I was like, man, I can't do another character. Yeah. I can't do it. But at the end of the day, like sitting there playing video games with buds. So
yeah, you're having a laugh the whole thing. Yeah. What was it? Mechatron during the Gambit episode, she said that like Gambit's kind of like the there's the meme of the mom picking up like the kid from the pool and the other one in the corner drowning. Yeah, they're like, Crucible is the kid getting picked up out of the pool while Gambit's like sitting there flailing its arms. That was last season, so it's still nothing really new about it, this one. But yeah, that's I'm same boat with Iron Banner. I think I played like 3 matches or something like that, and then that was it. I didn't really go too hard into it. I did the 10 matches of Gambit on 1 character so far, and I was like, and okay, all right, I get that. Thank you. Thank you, game.
Check the box there.
I am thankful that some of the seasonal triumphs, a lot of the Gambit ones are like right out the gate this time around, which is, I think, is a good change. But
yeah, that's always nice coming towards the trail end of the season. Like if you do any kind of bounty prepping, and you're like knocking those 10 Gambit games out for a bounty, you're gonna knock out most, if not all, those seasonal triumphs, within a couple games. So kind of pays to weight off. If you really don't want to like spend a whole lot of time in the playlist, like being kind of smart targeted farming, this definitely comes into play there.
Hell yeah. Well, so, and I know you're kind of, you and Bana, when I think of GMs, I think of you and Bana specifically together. Not necessarily apart. I just think of you guys as a team together. And we just had those drop yesterday. I know you guys went in with Demon Joe, and it looks like you guys had a pretty smooth sailing time with it, according to your activities that are showing on Bray.tech. What were your experiences with getting Conqueror this season?
Honestly, it feels kind of like a check the box thing. Because it's just kind of like, all right, we're going to guild Conqueror just to, get our different colored name to appear above our character's head. Or if people, if you're looking to flex, like, oh, I'm gilded Conqueror 7 or Flawless 7, whatever. Like there's that aspect of it, but it just kind of like, I don't know. It's the thing to do. It's like GMs are out. It's like, okay, let's knock them all out in one day. That way it's kind of like we took care of ours. We got our stuff done first. And then now we can look out to like helping other people and like, hey, whatever you need, like we got you. It doesn't matter what we run, what we do. And honestly, like I had a fun time. I always do. Typically I always run with Bona at GM reset. And then we rotate out a third party just to kind of keep things fresh. And it's just always a good time. It's fun because it's kind of different. I like to think we're running a little bit stacked so we can have more fun with it. So actually I wanted to do this last season. We had Charisma with us, and he ran Behemoth the whole time, and said it was a ton of fun. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna be the dude throwing stasis crystals down everywhere. So I ran Behemoth the whole time, and I had an absolute fucking blast. I mean, I will be the first to say, like, I play all three classes. I'll play any subclass. Like, I like to think I'm proficient in pretty much anything. Maining a Titan, obviously. But man, stasis is just, it's so strong and it's so much fun. And I giggled my way through 6 GMs, just chucking ice down, and just, it was so much fun.
What in particular about that class, like outside of just chucking crystals and everything, what were you building into to make it like the most fun for you?
I just spammy abilities. I mean, that's the name of the game in Destiny. It's space magic mixed with good solid gunplay. And I was rocking a Hoarfrost Z, so and with tier 10 resilience, I have an ice wall every 15-20 seconds.
Holy shit.
And then between that, I forgot, gosh, I can't remember the name of the aspect that lets you slide and create the crystals with your melee.
Oh yeah.
So that, and then I've got either a glacial wall just for a third batch of stasis crystals, or I was running a dust field with overload grenades, and I literally just nonstop spamming ice everywhere. And awesome. I didn't really think about it until afterwards, and I've caught some flack for running Behemoth in raids, because I like to have a little bit of fun.
Yeah,
and I'll throw the occasional stasis crystal in front of somebody when they're running and just run past them giggling,
as you do, right, Seth? Like,
you gotta have some fun with it.
Yeah.
I think most notably there was in Vault of Glass, when you go through the portal as you go to Venus or Mars and you got to come back out. I have been known to, I've only done it once, maybe twice, where I know people are coming out of the portal and I'll chuck a glacier grenade in front of that door, so they just walk out and they're stuck because they can't go anywhere. Their stasis crystals are like, what the fuck is going on? I'm like, I got you. I'm just messing with you, and I'll blow them up. But it's just fun, Everybody's so many people will harp so much, and I see this a lot in comment sections, whether it's on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter. They'll be like, "Oh, you could have done that faster," or "Oh, why
could have been more optimal?
Why didn't you use this gun? Why are you using that gun? Why are you only recently we did a one phase on the Harpy boss in the dungeon with the new glaive.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. That was incredible.
And somebody commented on it. They're like, God, I'm so sick and tired of seeing people doing the wrong melee combo on the glaive. And I was like, whoa, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't use a glaive that often, but I mean, we one phased a boss with it, so it's got to work pretty well.
I was mashing buttons. How could I be wrong?
Yeah, I was just pressing CW. I was holding W and just mashing C like the melee. Like, I don't know.
Were they thinking of like the shield? Like the shield?
Well, I guess you can well, with the glaive, I guess you can hold block. I haven't tried it out yet, but you can like hold block with the shield and melee, and it like does it faster or something. Or there's
it does like a 2-tap. So instead of a 3, instead of the 3,
which I
you're
didn't
just smacking twice.
I don't use glaives all that often, so I was like,
well, how dare you, hater, not know that?
Part of me was like, hey man, thanks for letting me know. Like, I didn't know this shit. I never used a glaive. Like, thank you. And the other half of me was like, fuck you, guy. Like, why you got to be a dick about it? Like,
I'm having fun. Let me have fun.
There's that old meme of like it's like a hand-drawn cartoon of people sitting on a couch playing TV, and there's somebody behind them screaming, "Stop having fun!"
Yeah,
like that is the image that comes into my mind when I see comments like that, wherever, either on my stuff or on other people's stuff, where they're like, "Man, why are you doing that?" Like, it's like, who fucking cares, man? They're having fun. Like, let them have fun. It's a video game. Let them have fun.
That's the thing about like the broader community, right? Like, you have all sorts of people who have all different sorts of ideas of what fun is. Yeah. And like the sense of humor on some of them is a little half-baked. Sometimes when it's like, well, I did it because I could, because the game allowed me to. That's fun. It's fun to watch. I mean, I watched the I've brought this up a few times here. So if you're at home, take a shot. The Feline 7 minute and 40 world record run that they did, which I think has already been broken. But some of the stuff that they do in there is kind of wacky. It doesn't necessarily look like it's game breaking. It's just they're going as fast as they can. They're using trace rifles and everything, which before this season, a lot of people may have like probably shit on. But because my community deleted my vault, I've been on the side of like, oh, I have to use what I have now, which isn't a lot, to go through and run stuff. I still have some things because my characters had stuff kind of like tucked away, not on purpose, but had it tucked away all the same. But like, what was the grenade launcher that I used? It was, I purchased a Deafening Whisper from Xur probably last week because I've been getting into waveframes again. Yeah. Or like getting into waveframes. I was never a huge fan of them. And then like, I got the one from Vow and I was like, oh, I kind of like this. So I've been on the lookout for more of them when they pop up, especially since I need to fill in spots on my kit now. Yeah. Picked that one up. It was $13.50 yesterday. Brought it up to $15.90 and took it in for just about every GM that we ran. And it was so much fun.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's funny you say waveframes. So I wouldn't imagine this to ever be on anybody's radar really for running GMs, kind of like a Deafening Whisper.
Yeah.
I used a Dead Messenger in all 6 GMs yesterday.
Yeah. Somebody said yesterday that would probably be kind of useful.
Yeah, like it's a waveframe. It shoots out, the three different the wave in 3 different directions. But on top of that, it pairs so well with stasis because I can throw down a glacier grenade or my stasis wall and then shoot a grenade at the ground and it shatters all the crystals, which does big AoE damage. So literally that's what I was doing. I took so many like short clips yesterday of me just like either bombarding a champion. Like I'd run up to a berry champion. I just hit him with a glacier grenade, shatter it, hit him with the slide melee, freeze him again, shatter it, hit him with my stasis wall, shatter it, throw another grenade down because I've got it back by then, shatter it, and just dumping ice and throwing, the waveframe at him. And waveframes are a ton of fun.
Incredible.
I'm sure people like if anybody's watching Bona or Joe's streams and they just saw like some behemoth titan come like sprinting up, sweat beating down my forehead, like just chucking ice everywhere, and then shooting the ground with a wave frame, they're probably just kind of standing off the side being like, look at this fucking idiot. But it worked and it was fun. So
look at this lovely fucking idiot.
Look at this titan. Jesus.
I was using Anarchy a lot yesterday too.
Oh yeah.
That was we were running Birthplace of the Vile, and that's when I pulled that out probably the hardest, because I felt like it did adequate work to the unstops. It kept the tick damage on them, so I could tuck it. I could tuck Anarchy away, do like hit an overload with my scout, and then while the unstop was coming out of it, I could bring Anarchy back out, and it would ping them for the unstop again.
Yep.
So like. It was just enough of like it was my equivalent of a trick shot. It was like,
there you go.
Yeah, look at what I can do. Huh? This is worthwhile maybe only this season.
Yeah. But hey, you got to enjoy it and you got to have fun with it. I mean, Anarchy is one of those guns that when it took that little bit of a nerf, like often happens, people were like, "Oh, it's nerfed."
Yeah, and they just put it away.
Like, not going to use it.
Yeah.
But that's awesome.
I was kind of guilty of that, like until this season when I was like, "Oh,
Same.
Grenade launchers are back." Like I'm going to be using that more, like because I probably like you, I've been using Witherhoard a lot, in in-game activities, and that is a fine gun. It is a fine weapon for getting things done. But I mean, you use one piece of kit all the time. It's you start to like get into a like. Not really like a flow. You kind of like get into a rut with it.
Yeah, it gets kind of stale the way I look at it. It's just kind of like you get the stale loadout where it's like, all right, I'm running Witherhoard, the Mida Mini Tool, SMG, and Cataclysmic with bait and switch. It's like, all right, that's what I'm running. Like
that's what everybody runs.
It's like it's cool, it's great, it works very well. But like you said, it's just kind of like it just kind of stagnates after a while. You're like, all right. Just going through the motions, and I think that can play into like the mindset of a Destiny player where they're just like, I'm just zero creativity in my loadout. I'm just going to use what I'm being told is what's the best to use, and I'm going to go from there.
Yeah,
which can then it can either be wildly successful for some, and other people can struggle because it's not like they're not used to it, or it's not their play style, or just not. It's like sitting there and cycling through my weapons so I can proc, bait and switch on my linear fusion rifle. Well, some people will be like, I don't like that. That's boring. Like, I just want to go in with a falling guillotine and just spin to win. Like, let me just
find a way to win.
Go Beyblade a boss real quick. Yeah. So it's
What do you feel outside of Dead Messenger? What do you feel would be fun weapons to use in GMs this season?
Let me actually let me pull up Dim real quick. I've got a bunch of them on me. So I've been a massive advocate for the Stasis Fusion Rifle Riptide.
Okay.
Since it came out, it can roll with choke clip, and so the top half of the magazine can freeze a target when you hit it twice. So only has to hit one bolt from two successive charges from the weapon, and you can freeze a target. So ever since it came out, like I've taken it into Master King's Ball, and I've sat there and I've just bullied anti-barrier champions. Before we started the encounter, everybody's like, "You got anti-barrier on?" And I'm like, "No, but I got Riptide. I'm good. Like, I'll be fine."
Yeah.
And so Riptide with Chill Clip is just it's near and dear to my heart because it's so different. It kind of breaks that mindset of like that lock and key mindset of, oh, I have to have a barrier weapon. It's like, Chill Clip works just as good. And there are other Chill Clip weapons out there that work. Just Riptide's a rapid fire, so it freezes faster. Let's see, Riptide. Truth Teller. It's an old avoid breach load grenade launcher, auto loading, blinding. But it fits the bill of the season for unstop, and it does weaken clear. So, and it's got blinding grenades. I've got a solar one with it too, with the same loadout.
Is that Season of the Arrivals or previous?
I think I'm looking at the symbol of it now. I think it's got the little circle with the pyramid ship on it. That's Arrivals, right?
Yeah.
I'm terrible about remembering seasonal names and or icons, but I think you're right. Salvager's Salvo. I've just been kind of like breaking some old ones out. I used Explosive Personality a little bit. Again, we're talking about waveframes, the old solar waveframe from, is that Season of the Dawn? What was the one with the sundial? Can't remember.
I think so. I think that was Season of the Dawn.
Yes, that one was Martyrs. The one you're talking about was the psyops.
That's right. That was Martyr's Retribution. Old Marty's. I catch a lot of flack for this because I have some like sunset guns in my vault that I refuse to get rid of. Marty's is one of them. Well,
you want to see my vault? You're gonna like it. I have like people give me flack all the time too. I should show you the old weapons I have. And they're like, why? I'm like, I like them. Shut up.
I'm looking at it now. I have my Waking Vigil that I farmed Menagerie an ungodly amount of hours for because I refused to get rid of it because I farmed so long for it. Jack Queen King, the hand cannon from Curse of Osiris, I still have with Demo Swash because it's just such a unique role. I still have my Midnight Coup. I refuse to delete that even though I can pull it from collections.
Our walk through Haters Museum.
I still have my mountaintop. I still have my mountaintop and Recluse only for the kill track.
Yeah.
I still have my Austringer because I refuse to get rid of the original one, even though I made a new one.
Yeah.
Crafted it and everything. I refuse to get rid of it.
That's dedication right there.
Yep.
There you go.
Let's see what else. Oh, there's been a lot of information and misinformation being put out about the Bump in the Night rocket recently.
I know Court was talking about. Court put out like an infographic, I believe, and I know that there had been a lot of conversation about it. For the folks at home who may not know, why don't you like kind of break down some of that?
So I don't pretend to know everything. I actually use Court's doc a lot. We refer to it as the sacred text. It's just got so much information, whether it's buffs, debuffs, how to properly stack stuff. I still don't understand all of it because a lot of it is additive versus multiplicative, what stacks versus what. So I have it actually saved as one of my favorites. So I keep it pulled up often. But so Bump in the Night is a stasis rocket launcher that was craftable Solar 3.0 season.
Season of the Haunted.
Yes. And when it came out, everyone was like, oh, it's got chill clip on it. That's interesting. And it became, people found out that chill clip procs with the Wolfpack rounds from Gallahorn. And it was, I don't remember exactly if it was quote unquote broken when it first came out and they had to tune it. I don't remember exactly what happened, but it made a little bit of noise on the Destiny community radar for a little while and then just kind of faded away. And then just recently, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think it was Above put out a video about it. And then G Miners put another video about it, breaking down how many Bump in the Nights with chill clip actually work most effectively versus an explosive light hothead adept, kind of min-maxing, pushing the numbers there. I'm not really a big numbers guy. I don't pretend to be.
Yeah.
I just go off. I'm a results driven person. So I looked at a lot of this information. I was like, I crafted 2 Bump in the Nights back that season because I wanted one with auto loading chill clip and one with field prep chill clip. Because I'm a masochist and I like crafting a bunch of different rolls so I don't have to re-roll them. And so I started using that one in GM's paired it with Behemoth, and I had a ton of fun. We used it last week, or I used it last week. We did a one phase of the new dungeon wyvern boss, Perseus, or however you pronounce it. And I used the demo chill clip Bump in the Night, and I had people commenting on posts about it being like, why are you using that? Like, it's not really that good. It's like all these people are putting these videos out about why it's not really that good. And I'm like, yeah, but it's one of a few rocket launchers that you can have demo on and you can craft it. So okay, it may not be like quote unquote best in slot to use, with every build, but like pairing it with a Starfire Protocol Warlock build that spam grenades anyways, it's just insanely well. For anybody that doesn't have access to a demolitionist rocket launcher because they haven't had it drop from playlist activities. I know this last Iron Banner there was the Roar of the Bear solar rocket launcher can now roll demolitionist and lasting impact, which is huge. A lot of people were playing Iron Banner just for that, which I will be next time. Just to have it. Again, because I'm a masochist and my vault has rolls of weapons that I'm like, yeah, that could work in like 0.05% of situations.
Right.
So we'll put that one away to collect dust for a little while. But it's another classic case of, yes, the numbers are there. So it's not, depending on how you use it, it can be really good or it can be not. But at the end of the day, like, I had a lot of fun using it, and even when I was using it in fire teams without Galahorn, I still would use it because it has demo on it. So it fits my playstyle. So
what would be like 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you would give to somebody to help them find a build within their playstyle?
That's a good question. I mean, for starters, you got to know what do you want out of the build? Do you want to be able to take it into Grandmaster Nightfalls? Do you want to take it into raids? Do you just want to kind of casually roll around and do public events or patrols? Like, what do you want the build for? Because there are so many strong builds out there that you can use. I mean, each class and each subclass has so many different options of something you can use in the end game, whether it's GMs or raids. So really, like, what do you want the build for? And then after that, what weapons do you like using? Some weapons work better with builds than others. Some of them, unfortunately, like, you'll have to play, like, I know, like a Starfire Protocol Warlock, like the quote unquote best in slot, you use a Wither Horde, because as it ticks damage while you're standing in a well or an Empowering Rift, you're getting your grenade energy back, which then, it creates that synergy. So there are some weapons that you'll be not forced into using, but if you're not using, you're limiting the build.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of figuring out what weapons you enjoy, and then I don't know, I guess what class you like. It's really hard to say, because it just depends on what you main. Like, I've had people come up to me and they'd be like, "Hey, I really want to put together a build for GMs. Like, can you help me?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Like, I'll jump in a call with them and I'll say, "Okay, what do you like? What do you want? Like, what do you main?" And they're like, "Oh, I'm a Titan main." I'm like, "Okay. What do you currently enjoy using?" "Oh, I like using, Loreley Splendor Helm or Helm of Saint 14 or, whatever." And I'm like, "Okay, that's great. We can either make a build with that, or I can show you some that are really strong and see if you have the exotics, and then we can build around it like that." But at the end of the day, if the individual isn't comfortable playing it, I wouldn't say I don't use it. Like, like, there are Titan mains that could come to me and say, "Hey, I want to be able to solo GMs," and I'm like, "Hey, that's great. These are your best bets, probably going to be on like a Void or an Arc Hunter. Are you comfortable with something like that, or do you want to try it on Titan?" They'll be like, "Yeah, sure, I want to try it on Hunter." So I'm like, "Hey, try these builds," or "No, I want to stick to Titan because I'm comfortable on it and I think I can do it." And I'm like, "Okay, it might be a little bit more difficult, but I will guide you to like what I think you would work well for you." So kind of just having an open mind, because there really are some, and I'm still guilty of it too. Like, this season, I haven't really played a whole lot of Hunter the last couple of seasons, and this season I've played a lot more than I think the other 2 classes, because I've been on Falcon's Hauberk.
Yeah,
I've just been having so much fun just going in Viz and making everything volatile, and it's so good, and it's different than what I would normally play, but I've been having a blast. So it's kind of adds a fourth one to it there, but just kind of enjoying what you play.
Yeah, that was one of the big conversations today too, because like I said earlier, like, today was like the BUILDCRAFTING Evolved article came out from Bungie, but there was also a hotfix that went out today that addressed the retrofit.
Yep.
And how volatile rounds were affecting DPS, and I guess it has hit retrofit pretty hard.
Which I am okay. So I'm super bummed about, actually, because I had a retrofit drop with target lock. And I haven't crafted it yet. And because I took a little bit of a break and I wasn't doing like my seasonal stuff or like getting my weekly red frame from the exo frame.
Yeah.
I don't have it crafted yet. And last week and this week I was like, all right, I gotta make sure I log in. I make sure I get enough umbral energy so I can get my 1 red frame of the machine gun, so I can try and take some of the RNG out of being able to craft it. And I bought my fourth one yesterday, and then today's notes come out and they're like, "Hey, by the way, we're nerfing that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll let that 5th frame drop organically. But
they
it's
knew.
still like it's so here's somebody I tweeted about it, just a snippet of the like the screenshot of the one sentence, the one liner about how they're fixing how volatile rounds interact with retrofit. And hold on, let me actually pull it up because I don't want to misspeak. Yeah, so what did it say? Fix an issue where volatile detonations triggered at a higher than expected cadence.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody said, I'm going to test it out first, which is a great mindset to have, because just because something, got changed a little bit, or dare I say nerfed, doesn't mean it's not going to be good.
It's the anarchy thing.
Yeah. So in my response is, I'm sure it'll be just as good. Maybe not quite as good, but it'll still be very good. So yeah, I'm a little bummed, but
yeah,
I knew, like when I started seeing people just absolutely, I think it was either Sneaky Beaver or somebody who was that typically does like when something is new and broken, or overpowered, strong, whatever. They take it and they one phase every raid boss and dungeon boss with it. And I was watching this video and I'm like, God damn, this thing. I've got people trying to tell me like, nah, that's working as intended. I'm like, I don't know about that, dude. I don't know.
Something seems off about this one. I don't know what it is.
The ease of use and the efficiency of it is just like, I mean, I know stuff like that exists and can work really well. Like you look at the old pre-nerf Worm Gods for Titans. Like there was Titans out there, one shield bashing Riven. And it's like, yeah, it's very clearly like kind of broken, but it also takes an extreme amount of setup. Whereas with your Falcons and Retrofit, it was like, let me just do what all hunters do best and go invis and then start shooting, and I can win.
It was a gin and tonic of a setup. 2 ingredients really needed.
Yeah.
Everything else is just extra.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting. I want to get some of your thoughts on this build crafting thing before we move into like some of the questions that were asked. So yeah, we haven't really had a ton of time to look at this article, to the point where I'm actually going to drop this in a message to you in case you don't have it pulled up.
I'm looking at it right now. Literally, I pulled it up while I was getting like the camera and everything ready for this. And I was like, damn, this just dropped. I don't have time to read through it.
Yeah. So they're like, the loadout screen looks cool. Like it looks very much like the customized screen needed to exist, needed to walk so that this thing could run. And if you're familiar with the UI for updating your look, it should look very familiar to you. The big things that came out of this article, just from my brief sweep, I'll probably do a more in-depth read of it after we get done with this. But they are the first one for me, the one that stuck out like a sore thumb to me. Match game is being removed from high difficulty activities, and we're making a few tweaks to how you can do damage to different types of shields. Base shield resistance to non-matching damage types across the entire game is being adjusted to 50%, similar to how Gambit is now. Not only that, but they're also like adjusting champions and like what triggers them. And so we have the abilities now, which we talked about a little bit earlier, like that kind of Pokemon dance of this thing breaks this thing, breaks this thing. And then armor change mods. So Artifice armor will have an extra slot that boosts up to 3 of one stat to round out your build. And Artifice or Artifact mods will now just be passive. So you'll unlock them and they'll just be available to you regardless of if they're socketed in or not. This has only been out a couple hours at this point. What are your initial thoughts looking at this thing?
I mean, there's a lot to, it seems like minimal changes, but there's a lot to process there across all those. I mean, match game, getting rid of match game and or kind of tweaking how we'll approach different elemental shields is interesting. I've never really been too miffed with match game as a modifier, because I'm probably of the minority that thinks that something like Champions and Match Game, it forces you into a loadout, but what it does is it also makes you like you have to really tailor your loadout for an activity. And I go back and forth on this because I do like that. I do like being kind of like forced into like, okay, you have to really think about what you're doing, and you really have to like, if you want to do this pinnacle, this apex, this peak level activity, like you have to really think about what you're doing. And I like that. But at times also, I mean, like you heard me saying earlier, I like to just kind of run through stuff and throw stasis everywhere. So I'm kind of mixed emotions about it. It's probably just kind of indifferent personally. I think it's a good change overall because it'll make things a little bit more tolerable for a lot of people. I know I've heard oftentimes people groan when Match Game is a modifier, or when they go into GMs, it's like, all right, well, yeah, there's Void, Arc, and Solar Shields. Well, I've got Arbalists, so I've got them all covered, and I've got Anti-Barrier covered. So
yeah,
I think it'll kind of take away from that in a good sense, where people won't be so closely tied to something like Arbalist, because while it's such a good anti-barrier weapon already, it's also fantastic for breaking any elemental shields. So it's just kind of like it's a no-brainer, best in slot, in the kinetic slot there. So I'll be interested to see like what it does to providing people more freedom when it comes to selecting their loadouts. I think, I guess probably be a pretty good change. Champions, I'm super stoked. I like to take everything I read in any sort of pre-release article from Bungie or TWAB patch notes, whatever. I like to kind of take it with a grain of salt. And I'll look at it, I'm like, okay, that's interesting. We'll see how, the actual practical application of it is. So I mean, just from glancing at this, I guess you can counter barrier champion shields with.
Yeah.
Is this right? It
says when using volatile rounds from your weapon, it will also pierce the barrier and stun the champion. When a player is radiant, their attacks pierce champion shields and stun them. Strand will also have a method of piercing barriers.
Yeah, so by playing into the quote unquote buff of the subclass, volatile rounds, radiant, or whatever Strand is, like it elevates your weapons to be able to tackle anti-barrier champions and just those. Whereas Arc, I'm assuming being amplified, or triggering jolts, as does slowing with stasis. So stasis grenades, dust field grenades are going to be huge for overload champions. Yeah, I mean, I think that's awesome because for so long, I'm sure you've seen it or heard it, or anybody listening like has probably heard it that deals with champions. A lot of players have been upset because it's like they feel like they have to play with that seasonal champion mod. It's like I'm forced to use pulse rifles for anti-barrier this season. It's like, yeah, I mean, you kind of are. There's anti-barrier exotics out there, or there's stasis to freeze barrier champions as an example. But for the most part, it's like, yeah, if you want to deal with champions, you just kind of have to, you have to use the weapon. Barriers and overloads you can just brute force. Barriers you can brute force with stasis. Overloads are the only really ones where you have to have the mod, otherwise they heal. So I think the overload change is going to be huge. The other two are just kind of, again, we'll just have to see what it looks like when it actually comes out. But I think I'm welcome to change. I was talking to somebody the other day about this, about how, Destiny is a game with an ever evolving sandbox, and it can upset a lot of people. When their favorite thing or what they've enjoyed using the most gets either nerfed or becomes not as effective as it was before because the game is going in a different direction. And I think that's the wrong mindset to have. With a game like Destiny, like I said, ever evolving sandbox, you have to be okay a little bit with change and realize that change is okay. What that does is it allows you to explore other options in the game. Not to sound like a broken record, and we've hit on it before about how so many people get, so like focused on, this is my loadout, my Wither Horde, my mini tool, and my Cataclysmic. This is what I have to run. That when it changes, it's almost like it's jarring for them. Where it's like, well, what do I do now? And then of course, they go to YouTube and they've, their favorite YouTuber will tell them what to use, or they'll watch a Twitch stream. Their favorite Twitch streamer will be like, oh, this is what I'm using and it's broken. Or they'll see a post on Twitter where somebody's using a glaive to one phase of a boss, and they're like,
I want to do that too. How do I do that?
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited. I'm always excited for changes. I mean, so I know Seth's just listening, but when I remember when the Arc 3.0, when the Arc 3.0, the big patch notes came out about the Arc 3.0 changes. I went over that with Pidge and Seth, and I was just, I mean, all three of us were just so excited because it's changes. I mean, the 3.0 subclass changes were huge regardless, but it's, you know, these huge sweeping changes that completely change up the way that you look at the game and the way that you look at what you're using on a day-to-day basis. Or I guess because not everybody will look at it from like a build crafting mindset, but you know, that's what this update, or at least these notes, are all about, is build crafting and how to better customize how you're playing the game, because there's so many options out there. So I'm super stoked. Can't wait.
Heck yeah.
And the armor charge mods, that's a lot to process there. I'm very much a visual person, so I'll be interested to see, like, once I get my hands on it, like how can I really like
tune this up? Yeah,
tune it up.
Hell yeah.
Guys.
Yes.
We're gonna have to say goodbye to Warmind Cell mods.
Yes.
I saw something about that in one of the chats I'm in. Somebody was like, "Oh, rip Warmind Cells," which I'm big bummed about. I loved Warmind Cells.
I'm very big bummed too. I get it. They nerfed them to the ground, but they're still fun to use. They're not great, but they're fun to use. And then they said it's around the balancing act. They said an example of mods that are coming along for the ride are Warmind Cells. These are a relic of a different time and had already been nerfed in the past. They had a good run. But these mods will be deprecated and no longer available starting season 20 to make way for new options to consider crafting your preferred combat style.
Yep.
Which is sad. It's super sad. You know, as somebody, like Seth was saying, like as somebody that really enjoyed Warmind Cells in their heyday, and then even after they nerfed, like, I think it was
they're still dumb fun, like for healing and everything.
So much fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So much fun.
When Val came out, there for a while I was using a Solar Titan build with a bunch of Warmind Cells, and the joy that I would get when I'd hear somebody go, "Is that a Warmind cell?"
Oh yeah.
I'm like, "Yes, that's mine. Don't shoot it. Leave it. I got it.
This is mine. Let me shoot it."
That was the thing. You would always fight over the Warmind Cell, especially if somebody was not running a build. You were running a build, and they would shoot your Warmind Cell. You're like, "Dude, you're taking away all that I can do with this because you shot it." And
it's the bright glowy orange thing. It's just like,
I know.
Just like captures people's attention.
Yeah, but we have somebody like that in CM.
It's sad to see it go, but I mean, the last sentence in that little balancing act paragraph hits the nail on the head. Like, they're making the way for new options to consider when crafting. Mm-hmm. So like, that's what a perfect example right there in that getting rid of Warmind Cells bit is that, yeah, they have to remove some of the old and outdated in order to make way for new. Yeah. Because they can't just keep compounding all this stuff. Because you think about it, like, you know, another year or two from now, if Warmind Cells were around, there'd be like 2 people, maybe 3, that would be using Warmind Cells. And then there'd be, you know, those newer players coming to the game that would see them and be like, "What the hell is, like, why does this exist? Like, what Warmind Cells?" So,
I mean, I think that's also kind of an issue of this disconnect that was created by the DCV. So, yeah, but at what you're saying is true. It's 100% true. But it's also like, well, this was a result of a decision that was made. Now, granted, the decision, I think, was just a result of there was no other option at the time. Yeah. Which is fine. But like, there's already such a huge disconnect between what is a lot of the things that are already in the game, like the old planets, and then what's happening in the story right now. Like, a lot of the people that just pick up the game right now, they just don't know. Like, I'm watching this YouTuber, or well, this creator, I guess, and she's going through like all of the old content, just watching videos, and just so that she knows what's happening, because she doesn't know what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, Warmind Cells, what are those? Well, that's a result of that, right? Like, well, you didn't get to play that season, and you also didn't get to understand the reason why they exist, or like what made them a thing. So yeah, I guess they're kind of cleaning up in that regard, but still.
Yeah. I would imagine, because I don't have zero dev experience just as a consumer of, you know, Destiny, but I would imagine that it's difficult to really balance all that, because you've had a game 100%. That, you know, at its onset, Bungie said that Destiny was going to be a 10-year experience, and we're well into, what is this, year 8, 7, 8?
Yeah, For the broad scale of it, I think
the broad scale, yeah.
We're ending on 6 of Destiny 2 now. Or are we starting year 6?
I don't math well. So
Lightfall is going to be the end of it. So calculate in regards to that. So
so
we should.
You think about a game that's been out as long as it has been and is projected to continue as long as it is. So many changes over the years, and I think Bungie's done a good job in most areas, in my personal opinion. There have been some questionable things that like the DCV, and then reissuing stuff, which I don't personally agree with. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not the one making decisions. And yeah, as a consumer of a product, like, I have to, I have a right to speak my mind.
Oh yeah.
But like, I still generally enjoy the game, and there is zero possible chance that Bungie can make everybody happy.
Right.
So taking everything with a grain of salt, realizing that, okay, we're losing stuff in order to gain, we're losing X in order to gain Y. Like, you have to kind of be like, okay, yeah, that sucks. I really wish it would have been a different way, but we're here now. We have what we have, and it's, I'm still enjoying playing the game. So I don't know.
Right. Yeah, that's just some big things coming down the pike. And later on this season, I'll probably do another panel, like, to talk about, like, just all the things that are coming, just to remind everybody all this stuff, because there's already a lot that we know about Lightfall coming in, at least like systems and now UI wise with the screenshots of the loadout screen. But yeah, there's a lot.
It's those annual expansions, man. That's where it's just like information overload. And it's like new stuff overload, where there's so much to kind of like take in that a lot of it can get overlooked.
Wait, is this supposed to come with this, or like, is this free? Is this part free, or like?
Yeah, but guys, we still have a TWAB tomorroh.
I know, you of that? And tomorrow, Thursday, it's gonna be for those of you listening on Friday, because this is a time capsule of 2 days ago. We're gonna get the raid date tomorrow too.
Yeah.
Oh, finally, let's go.
Yeah. The hippie had said that last week, so it's all sorts of wibbly jibbly stuff going on.
Well, it's funny because we'll have that this week, and then I feel like, especially for annual expansions, there's this kind of like dead space in TWABs where we're gonna get some big information on Thursday, tomorrow, or yesterday, depending on when you're listening to this. But so that's gonna be like huge because people are gonna start being able to plan. Lock in their day one raid teams, or try and take off from work, even though it's, probably only gonna be 6-7 weeks away. And that can be tough for some people if it's, if the raid's on a Friday or Saturday, depending on when you work. So, which is a huge piece of information for an annual expansion. But then I would imagine there's going to be at least a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks out of the last 6 weeks of the season where TWABs are kind of late.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be another big hitter, and everybody's going to start losing their mind.
Yeah. That'll probably happen in like 2 weeks out.
Yeah. And then who knows? Like, I know in the last couple seasons, which has been somewhat controversial, Bungie being silent up until the day of the expansion. So I would imagine that for an annual expansion, because those are, like I said, the big hitters, I would imagine that they're not going to do that and be as quiet as they have been for the seasonal stuff. Because it is, those are the big hype events, those big, the light falls, the witch queens, the forsakens, like those big expansions that really bring people either back to the game or to bring new people to the game. So they have to really hype those up. So I'm hoping that we see them.
Witch Queen had like Savathun take over Twitter.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Are we gonna have Callus take over? Callus take over their OnlyFans?
I mean, I expect something along those lines. Maybe not exactly the same thing, but like they did. I remember that. I remember Savathun taking over the Twitter and everything.
That's right.
But I also remember that like Savathun was a personality and a voice that people had wanted to hear from. And like, I feel like, I don't know necessarily if that's the same thing with Callus. Like,
I don't know.
Wow.
Callus has some diehard like fans out there. I've got a buddy of mine that I raid with a lot. He is like he is on cloud nine that Callus is coming back.
Okay.
Like, he is so freaking stoked that Callus is coming back, just to hear voice lines. Like when the trailer came out, was it yesterday?
Yeah.
He was just like spamming Callus quotes in our group chat. I was like, oh god damn it, Brian.
Brian's the perfect name. Brian's the perfect name for somebody who really loves Callus.
So there are people that are going to be, excited for that, because they were there at the beginning of Destiny 2, and they got, they fell in love with the Leviathan and Callus early on, and then have, had snippets of Callus over the years. So to have him as a big component of an expansion, it's going to be huge for a lot of people. Whereas others are going to be like, oh, great, Callus coming back. And look, that's just kind of the forefront of the annual expansion to look forward to. There's always going to be, there's been talks about Shiva Roth coming into the mix, and we don't know. So we'll see what Neo Numa's got in store for us.
Yeah. We still have a few more weeks of the season left. We have the last couple of weeks. We're going to have a new quest, new story related quest. So all sorts of things could break.
Which reminds me, I need to catch up on my.
Yeah, do that like now.
Because what is it? It's the last 2 weeks of the season, right? Is when it's going to be like if you finish the quest line, you'll jump right in.
Exactly.
Okay, so I've got some time. I should probably knock it out before I forget.
This week's they don't take that long. Like,
no.
Yeah, it's just if you really enjoy Heist Battlegrounds, you're gonna have a lot of time in Heist Battlegrounds.
I tell you, I've been hitting them like one or two like late at night, because I'm on like gremlin hours now with the little one. So like when she's down for sleep, I'm like, all right, let me log in and do a battleground or two real quick.
Quiet for Dad.
Yeah.
All right, I gotta knock this out.
Yeah.
Redport. Wake up the kid. The whole thing.
Yeah.
Moving into community questions.
All right.
We have a few here for you. Trudes asks, what's your all-time favorite Strike Nightfall specific piece of loot, D1 or D2 included?
So that is so just the Strike in general, or the Strike specific loot?
It said Strike or Nightfall specific loot, but somebody else, average D2 player, supporter of the show, also asked, what's your favorite GM in all of Destiny? So
Strike specific loot, I have to go back to D1. This is gonna be bad. So I have two. One I do remember. It's the Darkblade helmet, which was from.
Oh hell yeah!
If you remember, obviously in Destiny 2 we have the Lightblade. Destiny 1 we had Darkblade. So Darkblade's helm. I didn't necessarily really like the Strike. But the being able to literally, it was like taking a piece of armor off of your enemy's corpse and putting it on your
head. As a hat.
Yeah.
The Luke Smith promise.
Yeah. Just, I don't know. I thought it was so cool. But then there's hold on. I have to look it up because this is bad. To remember the name, Maul's Maulers. It was a set of Titan arms from the Shield Brothers Strike. Yeah. Which just looked so cool. I mean, there was the Hunter ones too from, I forget the name of the Strike in D1, that looked pretty cool from that Ogre boss. But the Maul's Maulers just looked so cool. Like you're literally you're putting on a piece of your fallen enemy and wear it around. So that was really cool. But that was obviously with the old D1 skeleton keys and strike farming. Which I thought was kind of cool. But for GMs, I was looking through. There's a new GM report out, and I was scrolling through and looking at the seasons GMs, and I have three. So this is it's hard for me to pick one. One is Lake of Shadows, and that's solely because as somebody who does a lot of helps and farms for a lot of god rolls, Lake of Shadows was always like all right, we can cruise through this in like 15 20 minutes even on a GM, and we can just like rapid fire farm. I remember there was times where it was the double loot drops for GMs was on Lake of Shadows, and it was like, hey, strap on your farming pants this week, boys, like we're gonna be living in Lake of Shadows. So loved it specifically for that. Probably a dark horse is a Garden World. I've been saying it a lot recently, and when talking about GMs with friends and community members about how, in talking about GM difficulty, A Garden World. I only have 3 clears on it as a GM because that was back when I was like still dipping my toe in the water.
Yeah.
I
Hated that one.
fucking hated A Garden World. It was so hard.
I hated that one so bad. Oh my god.
It was so hard. But it stands out in my mind as, in my opinion, it was the hardest for me and my fire team at the time, as one of the hardest GMs I've ever completed. And I might regret saying this, but I miss that. I miss that level of difficulty. That like, and maybe it's just because like over time, like there's a lot to take into consideration with like player skill getting, increasing, tools at our disposal becoming stronger, abilities becoming stronger. Power creep is a thing. There's a lot to take into consideration there, but it's just how brutal A Garden World was, and Seth echoes that it was, it was such a difficult GM. And then
it's the randomness of it that was really difficult to some extent. You remember like the room before you got to the boss? They had like 3 champs, right? I think it was like 2 barriers and then overload, or 2 overloads, something like that. It was like 3 of them, 2 of one, and then 1 of the other. But they were not always spawned in the same order.
I think the only clears I have of it, if I remember correctly, we had 3. This was before Omnioculus. This was before, tier 10 resilience and 40 damage resist. You went into that GM like a wet paper bag as a hunter. And if you weren't rocking 6 coyote for 2 invis dodges, you were hurting your fire team. So we went in with 3 of them. And we were just dodging all over the place and just trying to be invisible. And we're like, hey, it's just somebody get to the boss room. Just somebody get to the boss room.
And then if these didn't kill you, right? The freaking teleport may kill you. The little like cannon thing, that would kill you.
The launch, yeah, that little launcher thing.
Oh my god. Awful.
And then probably the last one would be Savathun's Song. I
did that one.
Right around the time I met Jay and we started running GMs together. I can't remember who our third was, but I remember we beat Savathun's Song. Like it was 45 minutes had gone by. It was Jay and I were the last 2 alive. So obviously you have no revives after 45 minutes. And Jay ends up going down. I'm on a banner shield Titan with I think Ursa's, and I'm sitting there and I'm like tanking that big ass shrieker as it's shooting me, and I've got banner shield up and I'm moving and I pull out, I think it was 21% delirium, and I just pull out 21% delirium and just like lay into the shrieker and end up killing it like 46 minutes and 30 seconds. And I was just like, last guardian standing. It was just one of those moments that sticks out in my mind of like, holy shit, we did that. And it was like down to the wire. So that's still one of my favorites. It's a little Savathun Song.
I missed that.
Dude, Savathun's Song.
I missed that trick.
I would honestly, oh god, I would love to see them bring, and that I don't think they will or can, but see some of these old ones come out of the DCB, like Strange Terrain, Savathun Song, Garden Worlds. Just so Festering Core was another brutal one because that was back when it was like you had to have 2 Izzies and 1 Divinity to just sit there and snipe champions from a mile away. I'd be interested to see how a lot of these GMs would stack up in today's meta.
Pyramidion and Zol. Give us Zol. Zol has never been, and I don't think Pyramidion have ever been in jumps. I'm not quite certain about the Pyramidion, but I know that Will of the Thousands has never been.
Has it never been a GM?
I thought never been a GM. No,
I can't
it was like the Nightfall Ordeals.
Oh yes. yeah.
That's what it was.
But it was never a GM, and they're different, right? They were difficult content back then. Yes, 100%. But they've never been. And I'm not sure about Pyramidion, but I don't think Pyramidion has ever been a Grandmaster either.
That was the one on IO, right? Yeah, with Asher Mir narrating about the lake.
I miss that. It was such a beautiful environment too. Like visually, it was a beautiful environment.
Taking out that, like getting the giant sniper boss just low enough without popping his head.
But
otherwise his head, he would get out. And he would chase after you everywhere.
Just have an unkillable boss without a head, just chasing around, sniping at you. Yeah.
God damn it! God damn it! You broke the head. Fuck. Now we're gonna have to go all the way back.
Shit.
Thanks.
Here we go.
Who did it?
Thanks, whoever did that, and that person who mainly did that. This guy right here. Next question coming from Average Destiny 2 player. What are your thoughts on GMs being made more accessible now that the power level required has been decreased? I know that doesn't really feel like it's been a hot topic, because I feel like everybody's like, oh yeah, more people get to play these now.
So I'm torn. As somebody like that, in the latter half of the season when GMs are out, as somebody who does a lot of GMs with a lot of different people, I love that more people are going to be able to experience them. Granted, if they're not on level, it's going to be a little bit, could be significantly harder for them. But you also got to take into consideration, like, we're a lot stronger than we have been in the past. I know Assault the Greppo gets a lot of flack for his opinions. But I think a lot of his opinions are, well thought out, because he's somebody who, competes and plays at one of the highest levels in the game. I don't necessarily agree with everything he says, but I think some of the things he says about GMs are true. Like if it's supposed to be an end game, pinnacle peak, like this is what you work towards. The rewards need to mimic that. B, it needs to remain a kind of in a tier of its own. So I think the fear is that by letting more people into GMs, it's going to take away from some of that prestige, or some of that, like, oh, GMs are like some of the end game PvE. So I think that's something to take into consideration. I personally hate the grind for pinnacles. The last couple of seasons, I mean, I'm always day one ready for GMs, but that's normally from just playing the game and doing bounties. I don't really like the pinnacle grind, so I choose not to do it more often than not, except for a week out from GMs. I'm like, crap, I need like +4. All right, fine, I'll do all my rotators. But I don't know. It's great for those that want to experience it. But experiencing it at a lower level might make it more punishing and might turn more people away. If you're able to find people to run with that are, at the cap, like, sure, they can kind of dragging somebody through may not be the right way to say it, but drag you through.
There's the backpack analogy a lot of times, where it's like, hop on my backpack, little one, and like we'll run through it. Yeah. But like,
so then the argument comes like, well, do those people really, like, quote unquote deserve the loot? And I don't think that's really the right way to look at it. I mean, we've taken people through raids that were getting one shot by a goblin because they were just so low, but they were like, I really want some raid loot. It's like, fuck it, let's go.
Yeah. Who are we to tell you no?
Yeah. I don't really know where I stand on it, to be honest, and it's not really a good answer.
That's fine.
I
that's
think
an answer in and of itself, though.
I think there's good arguments. I think there's good arguments on both sides of the fence. But if we're gonna make things more accessible, which is great, and I'm all for that, then we need to also make sure that the end game crowd is being taken care of as well, because those are some of the most dedicated, most opinionated, sometimes loudest people in the game. And I think that's something to remember, that in an MMO style game, like, you got to have something that's like, hey, this is peak, this is pinnacle, this is the most difficult thing to achieve. And the greater community has to understand, like, it's okay if you can't get there. It's okay. Like, you may want it, and if you want it, there are ways to work towards it. But if you don't get it, that's okay. Yeah. I look at Trials as an example. Like, I'm okay at PvP. I enjoy it best when I'm playing with friends. But more often than not, I don't really play PvP. Which I might get crucified for even giving an opinion about PvP as somebody who, lives by that mindset. But when it comes to Trials weapons, I'm okay with not getting Trials weapons. If there's something I really want, like, I chased an Adept Reed's Regret or even a regular Reed's Regret for the longest time. Whenever it was a Reed's week, I would get my Flawless card. It would normally be with either people that played Trials a lot or with some friends that I had fun playing with. We would, struggle our way to Flawless. We'd get there. And then I would just dump legendary shards into trying to get this weapon. And I didn't end up getting the quote unquote, like, best. What was it? Something fire. Was it Rapid Hit Firing Line or Triple Tap Firing Line? I never got it. I got tons with Firing Line, tons with auto loading Firing Line. And I basically went broke on legendary shards trying to get this thing. But at the end of the day, I was like, well, whatever. I'll make it work with what I got. Yeah. And it's okay. And I just didn't didn't play Trials because I didn't really enjoy it a lot of the time. And I think that's just a lot of people don't. I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. I don't know. I think I already did. It's just you have to be okay with not being able to have everything. It's okay to not have everything.
You're right. You're right. But here's the thing. Bungie is not thinking that way. And Bungie hasn't been thinking that way for the last few years. Because the way the game is made and the way the game is quote unquote marketed or presented as is that anything that is in the game is technically obtainable. Right?
Yeah.
And that's their mentality. And it's been their mentality for, I want to say, a few years now. And it's hard to let go because like you and I and Dan, we all come from this, the first few years of Destiny, where if you really wanted something that was endgame, then you had to work for it.
Yeah.
Whether it be PvP, whether it be PvE, whether it be like so on and so forth. And there was a while where there was like this kind of line that was kind of drawn, and then Bungie was like, no, we're going the other way. We're going with everything is obtainable one way or another. Now, granted, Trials is still in its own little pocket, and I would say PvP as a whole is a little bit in its own pocket now, especially with the new ranking and comp and whatnot. We're not even going to touch how good or bad PvP is. I'm not even going to talk about that. But the fact that they have like these different levels of comp, and then the seal, the glorious seal, you have to reach that level, and so on and so forth. So PvP still has retained a little bit of that. But PvE, I will say, when they shifted from endgame being raids to endgame being GMs, they changed all of it. And it wasn't about, this like super hardcore thing or this really amazing reward that was behind this really hardcore thing. And I say hardcore in relationship, like related to Destiny. We're going to talk about that just this way. But still, that used to be a thing. It's not going to be a thing anymore because your endgame is not raiding. Your endgame is GMs.
Right.
And that's when everything kind of shifted. So you're right, because a lot of people have been asking for that. But a lot of people are like, no, I want to be able to have everything. So, and Bungie is like, no, you can have everything, quote unquote. So where do you go from there, right? Or what do you do? How do you manage both teams, quote unquote, or both parties? Yeah,
it's definitely, it's a balancing act for sure. And I don't think, like I said earlier, there's no way to please everybody. So that means what that's going to mean is that as these systems continue to change, whether that's rewards or end game structure as far as difficulty, people are just going to have to be okay. It sounds kind of like a cop out, but people are just going to have to kind of be okay with it. Like, absolutely. If you have opinions about it, voice your opinions. Like, let people know that you don't agree with things. That's fine. Respectfully, of course.
Yeah, no death threats, please.
You don't have to agree with every aspect of a game to enjoy it.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. Overall, bringing it back to the question, I would say I am overall like happy that GMs are being made more accessible. I'm interested to see what it does in the long run for, overall player activity in the playlist. Whether that means we're going to see people like I know like Glad issued his challenge for the first minus 40 under solo flawless, and it was knocked out within the first 40 minutes. So I'm happy to see that there are still people that are willing to kind of challenge themselves and push the limit of the playlist, which kind of like that encapsulates the end game, the really like end game driven community. But the fact that now people are able to enter GMs at that level and play with their friends, and they may struggle a little bit. I think that's good.
Yeah. I kind of circling back to like the conversation about GMs being the transition point for end game, right? For like trading out like raids for GMs. I almost wonder there are two things that I wonder how it impacts raids as GMs in this. And part of that comes from like this build crafting article today, because while we have people able to get into GMs earlier. It also seems like they're making it easier for you to stun things. They're definitely making it easier for you to take down shields. And so I think that would be like a net benefit for somebody who's maybe only seeing skulls. You know, and I almost wonder how endgame LFG is going to affect the rating experience when it comes to like it as an end game activity.
Yeah.
The smile on your face right now for the audio listeners at home.
It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I like I said earlier, I take everything that I read or, you know, anything that's coming down the pipeline that we know of with a grain of salt. And I am always interested to see how the actual execution of it, you know, comes into play. And then also the kind of the backlog of effects and what happens next.
Yeah.
Because I mean, this is only a sample of what we know is coming this season with Lightfall. And over the course of the next year in Destiny, and I'm sure there's a lot more coming that we don't know about.
Sure.
Whether that's quality of life changes, whether that's content updates, whether that's, you know, Protozen coming back as a dungeon, you know, what have you. Like there's stuff we don't know about, so it's kind of just exciting. It's an exciting time. I feel like I'm always saying this around the annual expansion, but it's an exciting time in Destiny.
Yeah.
It always is.
I would be willing to bet that this year is the year of like UI and quality of life changes. Like they did.
I'm all for it. Please.
Yeah,
they did.
I mean, you look at the small UI changes we had with the champion mods proccing on weapons. And obviously there's still some work that I think could be done as far as like tailoring how that is presented on the left side of the screen there, to make sure that we can see as many buffs as possible, if not all of them, without being overwhelming. I mean, you look at some bigger MMOs, and speaking from limited experience or knowledge on them, but you know, something like World of Warcraft. There's so much going on screen right there. And granted, they're two different games. I understand that, but like, look at the different amounts of buffs, debuffs, stat modifiers, stuff like that can be happening at any one point in time. And I understand Destiny is not World of Warcraft, but in an MMO style game where you're applying buffs, debuffs, you've got relics you're carrying, you've got cooldowns that are on screen. You know, at what point in time do we say, hey, just put it all on there?
Yeah.
Or do we say, hey, your cooldowns are going to be on, your negative cooldowns are going to be on the right, positive are going to be on the left. So avoid having 8 or a dozen different texts on the left-hand side of your screen that could be overwhelming. Or is it just a visual thing, like your weapons glowing for unstoppable, or for any of the champion weapons? So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, like, I mean, UI changes are, I think, always welcome, especially when it makes it a little bit easier to process what you're seeing on screen.
Yeah. It just seems like we've had ability and sandbox changes. Well, sandbox changes are perpetual. Ability changes, especially with 3.0, with stasis kind of kicking that off. Like, we've had over a year of them really committing to that as like, this is where the game is going. And like, they're now, at least with the release of Lightfall, with what they said at launch, they're like, the DCV, like, we're getting rid of that. Like, so like the stuff that we have now should stay in the game. You should be able to play that. Without any, like, they haven't really released anything major about outside of loadouts, outside of the new Guardian rank system, outside of in-game LFG. Those all seem like quality of life changes instead of we're giving you this new fancy gun that spits out tentacles, and every time you fire it creates a tentacle monster, and that tentacle monster then attaches to your face and it sucks your soul out and then kills your ghost. And like,
okay,
it's
Dan.
well, look, okay.
New raid exotic confirmed.
Yeah, sorry. My uncle just got rehired as a janitor there, and he just messaged me about that. But yeah, it feels like they're now looking at what is going to keep the game alive, because it doesn't look like they're going to add a 3 to a box. At least not anytime soon.
Yeah.
Do you wanna hear my theory? Quote unquote?
Sure.
That's kind of.
Hold on, I've got some tinfoil downstairs. Let me go grab that.
It's
Cool.
No, but
5 minute
it's more
break?
on loan from something I read. It's not my own theory, but I read something. I'm like, it makes sense. So the way they phrase it, and this is important. The way they phrase it, Bungie phrases it. It's like, oh, you're getting Lightfall next, and then we're getting the final shape, right? And then they say the final shape is like wrapping up this storyline.
This saga, yeah.
Right? That doesn't mean that Destiny, like it could, but it's not clear, right? It doesn't mean that Destiny is ending at the end of like final shape. It just means that this specific storyline that started in Destiny 1 and then continued in Destiny 2 is like ending there. Like that saga, that story, that whatever, that narrative, if you want to call it, is ending there. But it doesn't mean that they're not gonna like be like, okay, well, we're taking this and we're just running something completely different, or we're running another storyline, and then this game has become more and more of an MMO, right? Because if you've noticed, especially this year, we've felt it a lot more. But it started with Beyond Light, and then again at Witch Queen. There's engine updates, right? They're updating the engine, which is partially why the DCV was created. And this year we fought it with like all the bugs and the lags and there's everything. But so that the tower. Oh my god, we're not even gonna touch that. But so that means okay, cool. So we've got Beyond Light update, Witch Queen update, and then every season of Witch Queen, now Lightfall update, whatever it brings. Well, a lot of UI, right? A lot of menus and stuff and so on and so forth. And then every season, probably, of Lightfall. And then final shape. Does that mean that maybe at final shape, it's a complete revamp? I'm throwing stuff right there. I mean, it's a complete revamp of the engine, or at the end of final shape, it's a complete revamp of the engine. And they're like, okay, we have like a completely new engine technically. The game is running hopefully smoother now. We can bring back stuff. We can, keep throwing on top of it and just keep adding on top of that. Because that could be a thing, right? So is this where we're going with Destiny? Or is this just, no, we're just going to do another one? But like you said, doesn't feel like they're wanting to add a 3 at the end of this.
Yeah.
So
I
don't know.
After seeing the success of Valheim, they're going low poly. That's what the final shape is. It's just low poly everything.
I mean, if it runs smoothly.
Valheim's a beautiful game. But so I remember when they announced that there would be something called the final shape, everybody was like, the final shape. And then they said that would wrap up the saga. And then there would be I don't know if you remember this. They said that there would be a little like a postscript added to it, like just a little afterward. That would be the next thing. So it's not just like it wouldn't be a hard stop.
Final, yeah.
It would be like we get the end of the saga, and then we have
epilogue.
We're getting an epilogue. We'd have an epilogue. Yeah. So like probably the following year, you get the final shape, which would be like the thing, and then the following year, in my estimation, would probably be what they would use to then wind you into whatever the next story is going to be. Maybe have a couple filler episodes in there, and then
it'd be interesting to see like how that would transition though, because when you think about the longevity of what the player base has experienced, and then just to, if they were to just stop. Mm-hmm. Whether that's pushing content, like if they stop creating content and it was just like, hey, this is like, boom, storyline is done. We've had the final shape. We've had, an epilogue, and we're not making any more content for Destiny. Mm-hmm. What does that do for those that still want to play the game? As a live service game, what does that mean? How long are servers going to stay online?
Yeah.
Versus like, okay, do we just say the next major expansion is, Destiny 2 Electric Boogaloo, and we go to another solar system or something. I don't know. Like, what is the next, like, or is it a lateral move? Is it a blast from the past? Do we go back and do we get to live in the age of the Iron Lords? Like
that'd be cool.
Like, are we going to have prelogs, or like, what is, like, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see whether it's just a hard, like, what kind of a hard stop it is, because it eventually, I would imagine, would come to a hard stop.
Maybe.
Whether that's, 4 years after they stop pushing out content and the last of the servers finally gets turned off. I don't know.
Yeah,
we're entering an age of uncertainty as far as the future of Destiny. So tune in next week.
I mean, you're not wrong though. That it's uncertain. Like, they haven't really talked about it. I think they're still maybe trying to keep their options open,
especially when there's the word, words come out that Bungie's working on a new IP. Like,
yeah, we got the marathon. What is it? It's a marathon loot grabber kind of thing, like almost like extraction looter is what they called it.
Yeah.
Where it's like, or at least that's what it's been reported as, where it would be the it would be, you go into an instance, you're facing players, you're also facing PvE, but you're also grabbing loot and extracting it out for your next run.
Yeah.
Kind of like, it feels kind of like what Division had.
Yeah.
In the Dark Zone, yeah.
Yeah, in the Dark Zones. But
see, I know some people are kind of freaking out about that.
Well, so what something like that does is, I've played a couple coming from personal experience. I've played a lot of Division 1, played a bit of Division 2 at launch, PvEVP, where, looter extraction like that. And I've also played open sandbox PvEVP games and like Sea of Thieves. So there comes a definite like shift in the community as far as like those that want, like, they don't want PvP in their PvE game. Like, don't force me to play against other people when I just want to play and get my loot and enjoy shooting aliens in the face. And then there's people that come into it and they're just all about the PvP. And then there's those that come into it with a mixed mindset of like, okay, I'm going to, I can be end game PvE focused, but when it comes time to fight, I'm ready to scrap. So it creates a very weird kind of dichotomy of player mindsets. I'm kind of nervous to see how the Destiny community would handle something like that. Being dropped in the lap. I mean, you look at Gambit, how Gambit is received, and that's exactly what it is. It's a PvP mode. So I don't know. That'd be interesting for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's also the thing that a lot of what I've seen, again, could be wrong, this is what I've seen. I think a lot of people are afraid that because they're working on another IP, that this means that it will be quote unquote detrimental to Destiny.
Oh yeah.
As in like, oh, we're working on something new, so out with the old, in with the new type of thing. And they're thinking like, oh, well, if they do that, that means they won't be able to, put as many resources and time and whatever into Destiny. But Bungie is like huge now. I don't know if you've seen how many like posts they have about like, we're hiring for this, we're hiring for that. And like, it's growing insanely. Like, it's a bit less of a like visible thing because everybody's working from home, or most people are working from home. And now, but they're hiring almost all throughout the US to work remotely for them, right? So we just don't know how many employees they have at the moment.
Yeah.
Like, they used to be like fairly small, yes, because they were under like another big publisher, but now they're their own. Well, I mean, they're still publishing, but you know what I mean. But they're their own entity, just as a thing, and we just don't know how big they are now. I have no clue how many employees they have anymore. So I think this idea of like, oh, because they're making another game and then another game, maybe that Destiny's gonna suffer for it. It's kind of like, maybe
they'll just have dedicated teams. I mean, what does any other multiple game studio do?
Yep,
that's what I think.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I don't know. That's all the questions that I have for you today. But Haater, thank you so much for coming on, man. Why don't you tell the folks at home where they can find you on the internet, sir?
Well, first off, thanks for having me.
How
when
dare
hit me
you?
up,
How dare you be so kind and think?
No, when you hit me
go
up,
on.
I was like, shit. All right, I gotta make sure that I'm free because I really want to do this. Like, this sounds like it's gonna be a good time. Because I know like we've played together a handful of times, and it's always
You're about
your
to say it's Steph's fault.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just fun being around you. Your personality is just is awesome. So it's just fun to sit down and just kind of really just
shoot the shit.
Yeah, shoot the shit, talk Destiny. Something that we're both passionate about, and obviously our overseers here, Seth, making sure we're behaving.
Here's the thing: everybody thinks I'm the boss of this thing. Steph is the one who's like,
lie.
Steph's the one who's
That's
like,
a lie.
are you gonna put out an episode this week? You gonna do it, Dan?
He's doing this so that if something goes wrong, I'm the one who takes the brunt of it.
Chat, you know what's up. Anyways.
Oh my god. Swear to God.
But yeah, so you can find me over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Haaaterade. Same thing on YouTube. I took a little bit of a break over the holidays to spend some time with family. We just had our first child 4 months ago, so it's been a definite lifestyle shift around the house. But especially in the next coming weeks, prior to Lightfall and then into Lightfall, ramping things back up. So like I said, twitch.tv/Haaaterade, YouTube, same thing, youtube.com/Haaaterade. I stream a little bit of everything, whether it's PV helps or low mans, and then over on YouTube, I do the build crafting thing. And I also just put out some fun boss melts and showcase some wonky stuff that people may not normally think to use in most situations. So
that glaive melt hit me straight in the heartstrings. I was like, good to see it. Good to see you. Good to see it out there.
Small side tangent about that. It is funny seeing, and I will echo this for anybody that creates Destiny 2 content. You never know what people don't know.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of people that watch your content, that take in your content, whether it's live streamed or whether it's long form, short form content, there's a good chance that you are showcasing or talking about something that somebody has no idea what you're talking about. No matter how long they've played the game, there are people that have been playing this game for years that still don't know, how well mods work.
Mm-hmm.
That don't understand how an exotic weapon can synergize with an exotic armor piece, or especially with the new 3.0 subclasses. They're still so new that a lot of people don't really understand like how some of the fragments can work together. So just be mindful of that as content creators. You don't know who your audience is.
Yeah.
So be receptive to all skill levels and kind of all mindsets when it comes to Destiny.
Yeah. Well, and that was, I think, what you did today. Like I posted this thing kind of like on a whim because it's something that like I was just thinking about as what our job is as creators. And essentially we're telling stories. We're just telling stories in a different format. Our stories happen to like spin out of live situations. But yeah, things like the glaive, stabbing the crap out of that boss with the glaive with two other titans. Like that is a story. It's funny and it's fun to watch. It's unique. It has a niche, but like it also expands, like what you were saying, it expands the knowledge base of somebody who's just like, oh, that's possible. Like I can then spin my mind into finding a way into that.
Because even those of us that play the game, day in and day out or a lot, there's still stuff that I don't know. There's still stuff that you don't know, or maybe aren't as proficient on as somebody else. So like I love seeing stuff, somebody do something and I'm like, holy crap, that works.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go try it now. Like, let's go have some fun with it.
Esoteric and Devious Entity are two that I watch so much of their stuff, and I'm like, I didn't know you could go there. You can go there. Or
Out of Bounds.
Yeah, what was it? Devious Entity. I think it was a Warmind cell, and he
picked it up.
Yeah, he was able to hit it with the lightning rod.
Arc staff,
yeah, and then just carry that around.
Yeah, I remember that. It's like, so stupid.
Yeah,
I saw somebody do that with the relic sword too recently in Dares of Eternity. So they had a relic sword that had the arc strider staff sticking out of it, and they're just running around with a sword with a staff.
That's so cool. My name's Danfinity. You can catch me on Twitter, Instagram, and the TikTok at Danfinity, where the eyes are else. You can catch me 3 days a week on Twitch at twitch.tv/Danfinity, helping Guardians through Pinnacle and in-the-game PvE activities. If you'd like to support the show, remember to rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. Anything you say helps us in the algorithm. This show is also listener supported, so if you'd like to give $3 a month to help keep the lights on, head on over to coffee.com/Danfinity. That is ko-fi.com/Danfinity. All the links are in the notes for the episode. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you find what you're grinding for.